The first time I heard about the third hallway was during a staff meeting. I'd just been hired as a substitute history teacher at Brookhaven High, one of those red brick schools built in the late 50s that always smelled faintly of dust and aging paper. That morning, Principal Dorsey casually mentioned in passing, "We don't use the old wing past the auditorium anymore. Maintenance issues." But when I asked one of the other teachers, Miss Brenner, about it later in the lounge, her face changed. She paused mid-sip of her coffee and said, "You mean the third hallway?" Her voice dropped an octave. "Just don't go there, okay? Trust me. That part of the building should have been sealed up years ago." It wasn't the warning itself that unnerved me. It was the way she said it, like she was remembering something she was trying hard to forget. Curiosity gets the better of people like me. That same week, while supervising detention, I caught one of the students, Devon, staring out the window toward the old wing. When I asked what he was looking at, he muttered, "Used to be my locker, back when they let us use that hallway." I stopped. "What do you mean, used to be?" He hesitated, eyes flicking toward the hallway's direction. One day it was there, next day it wasn't. Like the whole row just vanished. They told us it was construction. But lockers don't just disappear, Mr. Langley. I laughed, but uneasily. That night, I looked up the school's blueprint online. The third hallway was on it, clearly marked, labelled as part of the original structure. But when I walked through the school the next morning, it wasn't there. Just a blank wall past the auditorium. No doors, no hallway, nothing. A week later, we had a lockdown drill. The PA system crackled to life with a mechanical voice. "This is a lockdown. Secure all doors." I gathered my students quickly, locked the classroom, and waited. It was standard, until we heard the knock. It was faint at first. 3 soft taps from the hallway. One of the girls, Eliza, whispered, "Someone's outside." I held a finger to my lips, but then came another knock. This time louder, more urgent. I tiptoed to the door, peered through the slit of the window. No one, but Eliza suddenly whimpered. "She's back," she whispered, shrinking against the wall. "The girl in the hallway. She's looking for someone." When I asked her what she meant, her lips trembled. "My sister saw her a year ago. She went into the third hallway and never came back." The next day, I checked the old archives in the library. The school kept physical copies of attendance records and faculty lists going back decades. As I sifted through yellowed pages and brittle envelopes, something caught my eye. An envelope with the name Mr. Harlan Ames, handwritten on the front. Inside was a letter. It read, "To whoever finds this, they tried to shut it in, brick it over, hide it like it was a memory you could just ignore. But the hallway remembers. It's still there, waiting. It shifts, hides, listens. Don't believe the blueprints. Don't trust the staff. The school is feeding it. Students mostly, and sometimes us. Mr. Ames." I looked him up. No record, no mention. It was like he'd never taught here at all. That night, I returned to the school. I don't know what compelled me, stupidity maybe, or guilt. Something about Eliza's story. It stayed with me. I walked past the auditorium, ran my hand along the wall. Cold brick met my palm until, suddenly, it didn't. One section felt softer, warmer, like old wood, not concrete. I pushed. It gave way. A door, faintly outlined, almost invisible unless you knew where to touch. It creaked open with the sound of wet leaves peeling apart. And there it was, the third hallway. long, unlit, with rows of forgotten lockers and peeling paint. It smelled of mildew and something else, something metallic. I stepped in. The silence in the hallway wasn't like ordinary silence. It was too thick, too watchful. As I moved forward, I felt the temperature drop sharply. Frost formed along the edge of a locker. One of them creaked open on its own. I turned sharply. Nothing. But as I continued walking, I could hear footsteps behind me, perfectly timed with mine, but always a beat too late. Then, a whisper. "Devon!" I spun around. That voice didn't belong to anyone I knew, but it said the student's name as if it knew him, as if it had been watching him all along. The next morning, Devon didn't show up to class, nor the next. His parents were called. They said he left for school that day, but never arrived. I couldn't say anything. What would I even tell them? That their son was taken by a hallway that officially doesn't exist? But when I returned to the staff lounge, something was different. Ms. Brenner wasn't there. Her desk was cleared. A new sub sat in her place like she'd never existed. When I asked around, no one even remembered her name. I should have left, but I couldn't. I kept thinking about Devon, about the girl Eliza saw, about the voice that whispered. So I went back one last time. The hallway was easier to find now. It wanted me to return. As I stepped inside, the lights above flickered weakly. Shadows danced in unnatural patterns along the walls. Lockers shuddered as if something inside was trying to escape. Then I saw her, a girl, maybe 16, standing at the far end, pale, unmoving, her eyes locked onto mine. She raised a hand and pointed, not at me, but behind me. I turned. A locker stood open. Inside, a mirror. And in that reflection, I wasn't alone. Something stood beside me, tall, smiling. People always whispered about the old science wing at the far end of St. Elora High, but most dismissed the stories as typical teenage nonsense. The fourth floor, locked since 1982 after a fire supposedly destroyed part of the lab, was considered off-limits. No classes were held there. The door was chained, the hallway dark. Yet every so often, someone would claim they heard a bell ringing from that empty wing. A soft, metallic chime, like a class was about to begin. I hadn't thought about that hallway in years, until last October, when the school held its 75th anniversary. I returned as part of the alumni committee. I was 45 then, a bit heavier, more tired looking, but still curious. Stepping into that building again stirred something in me. Not nostalgia, unease. It hit the moment I passed the main staircase. That scent, old chalk, damp wood, and something faintly metallic. I remembered it clearly from my senior year. I thought it had just been my imagination back then. During the event planning, someone jokingly brought up the fourth floor. "We should do a haunted walkthrough," said Dennis, my former lab partner. A few people laughed. I didn't. I remembered the day in '97 when my friend Carla swore she saw someone watching her from one of the blackened lab windows. No one had believed her. That same week, she dropped out. Still, nostalgia is a funny thing. It blinds reason. When the idea gained traction, the principal reluctantly agreed to unlock the fourth floor. For one night only. It would be cleaned up and secured. But I had a bad feeling. The moment the bolt cutter sliced through that rusted chain, I swear I heard something whisper. It wasn't loud, just a sigh, but it chilled me to my core. The night of the walkthrough was damp, cloudy, and unusually silent. We were a group of 12, former students, 2 teachers, and the janitor. Flashlights in hand, we climbed the stairs toward the 4th floor. My heart pounded harder with each step, as if the walls themselves remembered us and resented our return. The door groaned as it opened, revealing a long corridor lined with scorched lockers. The air was heavy, almost syrupy. Some windows were still boarded. One flickering emergency light illuminated the dusty hallway. It looked like time had frozen. We split into groups, and I went with Dennis and 2 others. We turned left toward the old chemistry lab, and that's when we heard it. The bell. A soft, singular ring from somewhere deep down the hallway. We froze. At first, we thought it was a prank. Maybe someone set up a timer, but there was no tech up there, no power. The breaker had been off for decades. Dennis's face changed. "You guys heard that, right?" he asked, his voice shaking. We nodded. Something was off. The hallway ahead shimmered faintly, as if heat was rising from it, though the temperature was dropping fast. We kept walking, slow, hesitant steps echoing louder than they should have. When we checked our watches, 20 minutes had passed, but it felt like 5. One of the teachers called us on the walkie. "Where are you? You've been gone over an hour." We laughed nervously, assuming they were messing with us. But when we regrouped, they looked genuinely alarmed. My phone said 10:03 p.m. I had entered the hallway at 8:45. Back at the science lab, we found something that hadn't been there before. A message scrawled on the old, cracked blackboard. "Class begins when the bell rings. Sit down." It was written in dusty white chalk, fresh. No one admitted to writing it. The janitor looked pale. "I locked this room myself. That wasn't there." Suddenly, the door behind us slammed shut. The air grew thick. My flashlight flickered, and then we saw them, shadows along the far wall. Dozens of faint outlines like students seated at invisible desks, unmoving, staring at us. I could feel something behind me. I turned, and the blackboard was clean again. No writing. Dennis screamed. One of the teachers tried the door. It was locked from the outside. The janitor swore he hadn't done it. The room grew colder. Breath came out in visible clouds. Then the bell rang again. This time, louder, clearer. And with it, a voice. A woman's voice, calm and firm. "Take your seats." Dennis collapsed, trembling, whispering. "She's here." He had never told us, but in '97, he'd stayed late one night and claimed to see a teacher in that room. A woman in an outdated suit standing by the board, motionless. Her name wasn't in any record. He thought it was a ghost story. Until now. Later, we learned the truth. The school had covered it up. In 1982, during a late-night detention session, a chemistry experiment had gone wrong. 7 students and their teacher, Miss Haverly, were in room 4C. The fire killed all of them, but some claimed Miss Haverly refused to evacuate, insisting that class was still in session. Her body was never found. The survivors, teachers and janitors, reported seeing her in the days after, sitting calmly, watching. The school board sealed the 4th floor and erased the records. But no one ever really forgot. We eventually broke down the door and fled. But I never forgot the cold in my bones or the way the hallway seemed to breathe. In the weeks that followed, 3 of us began having vivid dreams, always of a classroom, dimly lit, with Miss Haverly writing equations on a board, whispering our names. Dennis was the first to go. He was found in his apartment, seated upright at a desk, eyes wide open. His final message on his phone? I heard the bell, and now, every night at 10:03 p.m, I hear it too, just once. A soft chime, like class is about to begin. Merrow High School was one of those buildings that seemed to age faster than time. The peeling paint on the windowsills, the faint stench of mold from the gym lockers, and the flickering hallway lights gave it the charm of a forgotten ghost town. Yet it wasn't the decay that made people uneasy. It was a rumor, one that lived between the cracks of those old red bricks. Locker 310. Students talked about it in half sentences, whispering just enough to pass the fear along, but never enough to take responsibility for the story. Some said a student died in front of it. Others claimed someone vanished inside it. The truth, no one really knew, or they pretended not to. When I returned to Merrow High in my late 30s as a night shift security guard, I didn't think twice about it. I had bills to pay, and this was just another job. But on my first day, the principal gave me a look I didn't forget. "Just steer clear of the West Wing," she muttered, handing me the building keys. "Old wiring, not safe." Her tone was flat, but her hands were trembling slightly. I should have seen it then, the warning, the unspoken fear. It was raining on my first night. Not the usual drizzle, but the kind that thudded against the windows like knuckles. I made my rounds slowly, letting the silence guide me. The school after dark was something else entirely. Too quiet. The kind of quiet that made your own breathing feel loud. And then, at the far end of the West Wing, past the last flickering exit sign, I saw it. Locker 310. The number was almost invisible, worn down like it was trying to erase itself. I stopped in front of it, not sure why. The air around it felt wrong, thick, like the oxygen had weight. I reached for my flashlight, leaned closer, and that's when it happened. Knock. A single dull knock from inside the locker. My body locked up. I couldn't even swallow. Then slowly came a whisper. Not loud, not clear, but unmistakably real. "I'm still here." It was so soft, I almost thought I imagined it. But then something scratched the inside of the door. 3 long, desperate claws dragging across metal. I backed away so fast I nearly tripped. The locker just stood there, still, silent again, but I swear it was breathing. The next day, I couldn't stop thinking about it. I searched online, scoured old message boards, even asked a few of the teachers still around from my student days. Most avoided eye contact. One simply said, "That thing's been sealed more times than I can count, but it always opens itself again." That night, I sneaked into the administrative office and pulled the student records. Nothing unusual. Until I found Jeremy Hale, 16 years old, vanished inside the school in 1986. Case marked unsolved. Last seen in hallway B, right in front of locker 310. The strangest part, the file was incomplete. Pages were missing, like someone had purposefully removed every detail. There was only a single blurry black and white photo of Jeremy. He was pale, thin, smiling nervously at the camera, and behind him, in the far corner of the frame, was what looked like an open locker. My stomach turned. I scanned the photo to save it, but when I got home, The image wouldn't open. The file name had changed to Do Not Look, and when I clicked it, my screen went black for 5 seconds. Then, just static, not visual, audible, screaming static. The following night, I returned to the hallway with a digital voice recorder and placed it near the locker. I tried to ignore how cold the air felt around me, as if that one area of the building had its own climate. I walked away and finished my rounds, thinking I was finally taking control of my fear. But when I played the recording later, the fear came back tenfold. The first 45 minutes were normal. Then it began. Faint breathing, growing heavier by the second. A sound of fingers tapping metal, then dragging. A low voice, guttural and broken, saying, "It's open now." I stopped the playback, sweat beading on my forehead. That voice wasn't mine. It wasn't anyone's. It sounded like decay, like something trying to form human words, but forgetting how. I sent the clip to a friend who works with forensic audio. She called me 5 minutes later, whispering over the line, "Where did you get this? There's something else in that hallway. Something not recorded with a microphone, but something that's inside the frequency itself." I don't know what possessed me to do it. Maybe I wanted answers. Maybe I just couldn't bear not knowing anymore. I brought bolt cutters, waited until 3:10 a.m., the time everything seemed to happen, and walked into the West Wing. Each step echoed too loudly, as if the hallway were exaggerating my presence. When I reached locker 310, I stood there for a long time, bolt cutters in hand, questioning every decision that brought me here. When I snapped the lock, the sound rang like a scream. The door creaked open slowly, revealing only darkness. No books, no bags, just thick dust, a strange foul odor, and a photo taped to the back wall. It was Jeremy, same photo from the file. Only this one was glossy, high resolution, and wet, like someone had just developed it. I reached in to grab it, and the moment my fingers touched the paper, the locker behind me slammed shut by itself. I spun around. All the other lockers began banging, one after the other. Bang, bang, bang. The entire hallway roared with metal, and something whispered close to my ear, "Now you're one of us." I quit the next day, no hesitation, but the fear didn't stay in that building. It followed me home like a shadow with memory. Lights in my apartment started flickering at exactly 3:10 a.m. I'd wake up to the sound of scratching on my bedroom door. I tried moving twice. New cities, new jobs, didn't matter. The knocking always came back 3 times, always the same, and worse. The photos. I found one on my pillow last week. It was me sleeping. Something had taken it. In the background, barely visible, was locker 310. I haven't worked security in months, but yesterday I received an envelope at my door. Inside was a student ID, name, Emily Santos, age 17, missing. The photo on her ID was fresh, and behind her stood the faint outline of a locker, open, with a figure inside. I know this isn't just a school legend. I lived it, and I swear, every time someone learns the truth, that thing finds them too. If you're hearing this story, it might already be coming for you.